Hey, this is Scott at Fire Breathing Christian, and for those of us who've noticed that social justice warriors, SJWs, seem to operate from a very narrow set of parameters and seem to always respond to questions or challenges of any kind by pulling from a very short list of responses. Canned responses is like, a lot of times it's like talking to a chatty Cathy doll. You know, you say something, and then it's as though someone's standing behind the chatty Cathy doll that you're questioning, pulling the string, and the doll just regurgitates one of 3, 4, or 5 pre-programmed lines. For those of us who've noticed that and gotten a sense of the creepiness of it, the Orwellian nature of it all, and the sadness of it. I mean, it's pretty awful. It's sad to see people, or at least what we think are people, operating in that way. For those of us who've noticed these things and been concerned and been trying to point this sort of thing out, the new NPC meme that's been going around and taken flight lately is a godsend. It's a real blessing. It's doing a lot to shine light in a lot of areas that social justice warriors, due to the narrow parameters described earlier, they don't want to look at. They don't want to be seen. And this is a follow-up, basically. This video is a follow-up to an article that we covered last week, published at Kotaku, if I'm pronouncing that right. I'm not sure. Don't care much. Not a very good site. Not worthy of a whole lot of extra attention to getting the name right. But the article that was posted there, which was an incredible article, and I encourage everyone to go check it out, How the NPC Meme Tries to Dehumanize SJWs. We covered this in some detail in an earlier video. I'd encourage you to check it out. I'll put a link in the description of this video. But since then, it's been awesome to watch the meme continue to gain steam and take flight, and I've seen some recent comments made, and I wanted to touch base on those and then make a few observations. There are really a handful of points that I want to make as to why this meme is so accurate, which is then why the SJWs are completely flipping out and melting down. They're short-circuiting, you might say. So the basic contention of the article is that a meme has been created by folks who've noticed these characteristics of SJWs, that they just pull from the same narrow, small, very, very shallow pool of responses and thought in any interaction that they have on any subject. No matter what you try to do to add detail, context, clarity, they have a very, very, very narrow, restricted, shallow pool from which to draw what we consider to be thought usually, but the more you look into this, the more you wonder, are they actually even thinking? Are they actually even human? Now, the NPC meme goes so far as to sort of tag them, and it's a tag, it's a meme, okay? First of all, people understand there's tongue-in-cheek aspect to this. We're not actually saying that these people are not human. We're saying with the meme, or at least I'm saying when I use the meme, and I love this meme, that they're acting as though they're not human. They're acting as though they're incapable of independent thought. They're acting as though they're just programmed with a very short script, and they're incapable of deviating from it. They just have no ability to move beyond their very, very tiny, narrow, prescribed and programmed narrative. And so the article here is decrying this, that this has been pointed out, that the NPC label, which is a term gamers are familiar with as a non-player character, computer-generated, human-looking, it plays the role of looking like a character in the world, the computer-generated world that you're playing a game in. But in actuality, it's not. It's just a programmed piece of the background of scenery that's set up to regurgitate certain lines or give you certain prescribed options, and it can do nothing else because it's not real. It's not an actual player. It's not an actual character. It's a non-player character. So it is a character, I should say, but it's just a pre-programmed, very narrow in its understanding and narrow in its purpose, and it's incapable of deviation from its programming. And that's the heart of the meme. And the meme is really, horrifying SJWs who are, I think, realizing that whether they want to acknowledge it or not, is that this is a very, very accurate description of who they are based on how they conduct themselves routinely within the culture. This is just what they do. And so I would encourage you to check out the article, check out the video that we did recently. Again, I'll put the link in there, but I wanted to move on to some new comments that have been made, a couple other posts that have been made by others on the subject. And one of them here is a very short, very brief here, but I love the comment at the bottom. And so the title here is NPC the new SJW? And the writer here goes on with, yes, SJW had the power to hurt at one time, but you can only get called the same thing so many times before it loses its sting. Maybe it's time to move on to a new rhetorical label that drives the enemy crazy. After all, SJW is so 2015. A while back, someone at 4chan started calling them NPCs. And and last week, Kotaku just posted a very long-winded piece on why it's wrong to call SJWs NPCs. And here's the quote. It's one thing to claim that a person's strongly held views are informed by nothing at all, but entirely another to imply that they're completely on autopilot. That is dehumanization, a way of reconceiving your enemies as objects, pawns, strawmen, tools. At best, dismissing large swaths of people you disagree with in this way betrays a lack of empathy for people whose experience is different from yours, and an unwillingness to consider that if a vast number of people happen to agree over something, it may be good to examine why. At best, it is a great utility for spreading bogus conspiracy theories. And the observation here at the end, the complete and total lack of awareness here is breathtaking. And it is. It's amazing. And it's this lack of self-awareness that just confirms the meme. These people cannot see anything outside of themselves and their narrative. They are incapable. They're very NPC-like. And so the label fits like a glove. This idea of autopilot, being on autopilot. And the concern being, as in the title of the article that we referenced earlier, dehumanization, as if that's a problem for these people when it comes to anyone who disagrees with them. How normal is it now for them to justify even violence and doxing and anything by dehumanizing their opposition? They're not really people. They're hate. They're the embodiment of hate. Those Trump voters, those conservatives, those people who don't get the SJW narrative. They dehumanize non-SJWs all the time as the means by which they justify everything up to and including physical violence. This is what they do. So the irony is thick, and the complete lack of self-awareness referenced here really is powerful and convicting, and it really elevates. This NPC label is going to be a thing for a while, and it should be. Now, I want to get on to another article here at Red State. We're going to cover this, and then I want to share a few specifics as to why I think this label is good, solid, accurate, and therefore horrifying to the NPC/SJW crowd. But in the meantime, here's this Red State article. The meme the gaming community created to label SJWs is pretty brilliant. That's the title. Simple enough, straightforward. If you've ever picked up a video game that features other characters that are controlled by the computer, then you've run into non-player characters, or NPCs. NPCs serve a host of different functions depending on what the program you're playing with needs them for. Oh, that's a little clumsy. They're the villagers in Skyrim, Toad from Super Mario Bros., and the ghosts in Pac-Man. NPCs may have dialogue, patterns, and personality, but at the end of the day, they're just a program with preset behavioral patterns decided for them by a developer. Now, think about that. When you're talking with SJWs, with NPCs, are they not prone to regurgitating the exact same responses in every context? It doesn't matter about the details. This is what identity politics does to you. When everything is about, ultimately, identity politics and cultural Marxism, then other details literally don't matter to you. It always comes back to, well, was it a woman? Was it a homosexual? Was it a black person? And then they define everything from there forward. And therefore, they find themselves very, very limited in their ability to think or analyze anything beyond those core elements that they've sort of made the central idol of their worldview. Now, let's continue with the article. Now, let's pretend we're taking this article from the top. If you've ever stepped onto a college campus or a protest demonstration that features people with neon-colored hair screaming at the top of their lungs about identity politics or social concern, then you've run into social justice warriors, or SJWs. SJWs serve a host of different functions depending on what activists, politicians, and the media need them for. They're the crazed people trying to beat down the Supreme Court door, the Antifa members threatening motorists, or the male feminist roundhousing a woman for expressing pro-life views. And remember, now we're talking about reality. This is what these NPCs do. This is where their programming leads, since they're incapable of exploring thought on their own, outside of the prescribed narrative. This is how they act out their programming. SJWs may have dialogue, patterns, and personality, but at the end of the day, they're just a program with preset behavioral patterns decided for them by professors, activist groups, or the media. Amen. The comparison between NPCs and SJWs is pretty striking and simultaneously hilarious. And this is what's bugging them so much. It's right on accurate and it is comical. It's dark comedy, but it's comedy nonetheless. SJWs aren't known for their individualism. No kidding. Complete uniformity of thought, while ironically and comically proclaiming a dear appreciation for and defense of things like tolerance and diversity. You couldn't make up something more tragically comedic than the whole SJW NPC worldview. Back to the article. All of their beliefs seem to be uniform no matter which college or protest you go to. Isn't that interesting? Even if you bring the facts that debunk their beliefs, they can't or won't deviate from, quote, their truth, end quote. They think what they're told with seemingly no capacity for critical analysis, and once their dialogue tree runs out on a certain subject, they either clam up or begin shouting a phrase over and over again. And how commonly do we see this? And it does. It's a very narrow dialogue tree. The author here references a dialogue tree. It's very short. It's very brief. A very simple flowchart. If a person, non-SJW, says A, then you go to one of these few responses, and there's not much beyond that. That's it. And then if they can't make any progress from their perspective with that simple, narrow flowchart of responses, then it's on to shouting chants at you. That's kind of what they do. And the article continues. You get the idea. This is awfully reminiscent of the way NPCs interact with gamers in the virtual world. And there's why the meme works so well. Outside the bounds of what the programmers gave them, the NPCs aren't capable of doing much else. Talk to one enough and eventually, and it doesn't take long, they'll run out of things to say and begin repeating the same phrase over and over again. They even made a joke about it in the Jumanji sequel. And there's a video clip here at the Red State article. Since the gaming community is no stranger to the behavior of SJWs thanks to the Gamergate movement, it was probably only a matter of time before someone made the connection between the behaviors of the pre-programmed NPCs and the indoctrinated SJWs. Thus, the NPC meme was born, and gamers have been referring to SJWs as NPCs with hilarious effect. Interestingly, the same SJWs that weren't long ago calling gamers sock puppets in order to dehumanize and devalue them for speaking out against identity politics in gaming are now offended that gamers are using the NPC term to insult them. And that's a great place to pause in the article. I'm not going to continue reading it. I'd encourage you to check it out. But this brings us to some of the reasons, the rank hypocrisy of these people and their inability to even see it, or if they do see it, to really notice it or even care. It goes to the beauty and the accuracy of the meme. And there are a few things I wanted to point out. First of all, on the NPC meme, there's a groupthink that's programmed by someone above them. They are puppets at the end of the strings, only able to do what they've been told and programmed to do by the people who've programmed the groupthink narrative, the social justice warrior narrative. That's what these NPCs are. That's one reason why the meme is so powerful, compelling, true, and nightmarishly humiliating to the SJW NPCs who are now trying to push back against it. Then it's this dehumanization thing. I really think this is worth focusing on, and we've already touched on it a little bit here, but SJWs, they are as known for dehumanizing, for justifying any kind of horrible behavior up to and including violence against people by dehumanizing them. That's what they do. They play the victim as quickly as they can and as emphatically as they can. They claim the victim card, and then they try to use that victim card as justification to beat people to death. To literally sometimes, it's sometimes figuratively, often economically. They want you to, if they can't kill you physically, they want to kill you economically, and they will play the victim card and be as brutal with that card in their hand as they can be, up to and including physical violence and murder. They do these things. They advocate these things routinely. So dehumanization is their thing. It's what they do. It's what NPCs are known for. So it's interesting to see them trying to push back on the dehumanizing element of this particular meme. And the final thing I just wanted to repeat here is this complete and total lack of self-awareness. And that was what I think was referenced and why I wanted to even touch on this post here. The complete and total lack of self-awareness that these people have. This is such an NPC thing. They're incapable of self-examination, of critical thought, of testing their own ideas in light of vigorous, fact-based debate. They can't do it. And not only can they not do it, they don't want to do it. And the fact that you would even try to do it, it's not. And for those who don't know, the SJW, radical feminist, cultural, Marxist, identity politics people, they're actually openly arguing that logic itself, things like concepts of, rules of evidence, standards of logic, non-contradiction, that those things themselves are patriarchal, male-serving constructs. Let that sink in. Google it, look into it yourself, feel free. We'll be doing future videos on this definitely here, but they actually believe logic is a part of the patriarchy. Logic is a part of the system that they have to tear down. So we should not be surprised that they run so quickly and so openly, proudly even, from logical argument. And so there's a lot that we owe to their own behavior by way of inspiring people to come up with a meme like the NPC meme, because it shines a lot of light. It helps us all to see things clearly. And one thing I do want to say here, and I want to emphasize this at the end, while this meme is fantastic for identifying and critiquing and exposing the social justice warrior nightmare that's rolling on in the culture right now, we need to all be looking at ourselves and testing ourselves regularly for any kind of NPC-like traits that we might have, because we're all prone to hang out with people who agree with us and to find those echo chambers or feedback loops. We're inclined that way. It's a natural inclination. And so we always want to be testing ourselves and looking out, because we can. If we're regurgitating responses without thought and without an ability to explain those responses in more detail and defend them against critical pushback, then we're becoming an NPC too. And we want to be careful. So we don't want to just note how beautifully this label fits on others. We want to always be looking out for ourselves and testing ourselves to be sure we're not becoming what these crazy people have become on the social justice warrior side of things. If you like videos like this, please do like the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel. I appreciate that very much. And I look forward to diving into the madness together here as things roll on, because I'm optimistic ultimately. I mean, you can't help but appreciate the humor and enjoy the ride and see that the tide is turning against these people, because they're being identified as the completely non-self-aware, hypocritical, dehumanizing destroyers of culture that they are. If you appreciated this video and you want to support what we're doing, please like the video, share the video, and subscribe to the channel. If you're watching this on YouTube, please hit the little bell icon so that you can be notified every time we post a new video, which we're hoping to do regularly on a daily basis from here on out on this subject and related subjects. Thank you very much for your support. Without it, we can't continue to do this.